Is it just me or has SAO gotten very depressing? Like, I honestly think this episode went into such great detail of something very depressing and something that, while it wasn't bad by any means, ultimately it's not something as a person, as a human being, that I want to see, because while it has some of the sci-fi elements of using the headgear and things like that, and kind of her being connected to the shoulder, ultimately it's dealing with a situation that, again, is very realistic in a sense, regarding somebody having a disease like that and ultimately having to fight it. So for me, it's just like, it just feels awkward as a human being with a heart that cares to see something like this, because you see things like this every day in real life where somebody is suffering and they want to live out their dreams and kind of do things that they never were able to do. So you come into an episode like this of SAO and it's just like, fuck, I don't want to look at this because it's just so sad and depressing. And I've seen people that they don't think that, oh, she deserves this emotion and it doesn't feel legit. For me, knowing the situation that she's in, and again, being a human being, I sympathize with it greatly. And Yuki, while she wasn't around long, ultimately I think SAO did a fine job at making me give a fuck about this character and her circumstances. And the fact that they went there, we've heard this character had a disease and she was about to die or whatever, but the fact that they actually said AIDS, this girl is dying of this disease that we know in this real life, makes it more stronger. Beginning of this episode, and for the most part, a lot of this episode was mainly just walking around, kind of Yuki getting to experience things that she never could before, because she's always been in this hospital basically, and she only had like small inklings of getting out of that hospital. So the fact that Asuna was able to let her live, a normal life for even a little bit, and we got to put this on normal because she is at the end of the day on an animatronic machine that godlike Kirito was able to build. Yes, Kirito knows all, sees all, does all, helps all, but ultimately he was able to let her live out some of those dreams. And I really hope someday in our real world a technology like that could actually exist, and people can do that, because there's people that, again, and I feel sad talking about it, because there's people that suffer from this every fucking day, and they could use something like this. And I think one of the things that, while this situation is sad and ultimately we were dealing with this was part of the arc, I think the overall arcing thing of everything on top of it all was the situation with Asuna and her mom. And I think it was kind of symbolic in a way. And even when Yuki was reading that little poem in the classroom and whatnot, or that little thing regarding like the laborer, it was very symbolic of her struggle of what she's going through right now. That's probably why the teacher picked it out for her to read in particular. But everything was kind of pushing forward. Life is short, shit can happen, you shouldn't hold grudges, and you shouldn't be mad, and you should try to work things out. And I was pushing Asuna with her mom. And if anything, the second half of SAO 2, while it's been not as good as SAO 2, the beginning of SAO 2 or whatever, ultimately I gotta say at the very least that it made Asuna so much better. It gave so much more light to her, and ultimately seeing the situation with her and her mother just gave more light and shed more light into it, and kind of this episode progressed everything that we've been looking at. Now, with all that being said, I will say I did feel that it was unrealistic the way her mom changed. It was kind of like, look at Grandpa's house. You remember Grandpa's house? And you see those white rabbits? You should change. And while, yeah, again, it kind of goes into that her mother has a lot of regrets, and her mother, the reason she's like that is because of things in her past and kind of choices she's made. So ultimately, that's why she changed. I personally think that a hard-headed bitch like that in real life would never change so easily and say, well, if you get good grades, you can keep on going, and eventually you have to go to university, but I'll let you stay at that school just because she saw Grandma and Grandpa's house and some white rabbits. It doesn't happen like that in the real world at all. Nobody changes like that, especially, again, a hardened bitch like we've seen Asuna's mom time and time again. Yeah, she had a sentimental moment, but let's be realistic here. If it was the real world, it would not go down like that. Now, that's not to say that it didn't do progression at the very least, in a sense of her and her mom finding some sort of common ground, but ultimately it just felt, for me personally, like I just don't believe it. That, it just doesn't feel like legit that somebody would change that easily. Very depressing, and like just kind of, oh man, I don't want to be seeing this simply because it's so depressing type of episode of SAO. It's like, it's not bad, but it's like, I don't know, as again, seeing this in the real world and everything and shit like that, somebody dealing with these situations and, having problems with your parents and everything, it just all felt like too real to want to watch, if you get what I mean. Anime, a lot of times people use it for escapism. Sometimes I use it to get away from my problems. And I don't want to kind of go to things that is like very realistic. And it's weird because I'm saying very realistic. Meanwhile, there's like technology that won't fucking exist for probably 20s of years or whatever. But you get what I mean. So with all that being said, maybe a 7 to a 7.5 for this episode. Good progression overall. A lot of it was just kind of Yuki living out some of her dreams. And it was very sad. And the thing with her mother, it was progression. It's just the mother part felt unrealistic or changed. But nonetheless, again, giving more insight into Asuna and some closure into her life. I'm curious what the final episode of SAO is going to be like. I'm imagining it might be Yuki's death. I don't want to see that because it's already been sad enough, and I hope that's not the case. I hope it ends with them like having one last meal or one last game together or something, because I cannot fucking deal with that as a person. It's like, this is depressing enough. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. What do you think about Yuki getting to live out some of her dreams? What do you think about the technology that godlike Kirito was able to create? And how do you feel about the relationship between Asuna and her mother? Do you feel as though it was kind of like BS the way it kind of changed again? It just didn't feel real to me. Like, I get it. She saw some of the things that made her see some of the regrets in her life and how she's always been a hard ass, and like she regretted not going to her parents' funeral. It's like, I shouldn't make the same mistakes with my daughter, but you get what I mean. Like, let's be real here. In the real world, the mother would be like, I don't give a fuck what you showing me this. You're going to the motherfucking school I said, bitch. Put on your dress. And yeah, so good episode for the most part, just those parts that I mentioned. But that's all I have for this review. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, if you could do so as well, that'd be awesome. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.